Good evening and welcome. I'm Sheila Balgobin, and I am the Dream Decipherer, and I help you to crack the code of your sleep and dreams so you can sleep sound and dream deep. This evening, my two dreams feature toy tractors on the highway and bouncers in basement raves. So let's see what the connection may be between these two. The first dream, the dreamer reports that he was in a nightclub that had a couple of different floors or levels. And because the club apparently was quite full, the bouncers had stopped letting people in. But suddenly the dreamer realized that there was another room downstairs, like a basement room maybe, with a different sound, a different type of music that people weren't going into. And so he left the club, met some friends outside, and the bouncers apparently let them go straight in and bypass the huge line because they were going to this other space in the basement. So that ends the first dream. And the second dream is also pretty short. The dreamer reported driving his dad's car, a Morris Minor, and the dad was with the dreamer in the passenger seat. Now, as they're driving along, they're getting ready to get onto a local highway or motorway. They see a man on a child's plastic tractor pedaling onto the ramp of the highway. And at first glance, the dreamer said, what is this crazy fool doing? And then suddenly realized that it was actually his brother, who the dreamer reports is disabled. And he actually passed the brother on this toy tractor to stop him. And he then asked the dad to get out and assist the brother. And pull him over. And there ends the second dream. Well, it doesn't seem to be a huge amount of connection between these dreams, but as always, when dreams are come in close proximity to one another, they usually are related in some way. So we'll see what happens. Well, looking at the first dream, the dreamer reports that he was in a nightclub somewhere. So, there's the obvious connotations that you can draw from that. It's a fun, it's a night out, it's activity, it's meeting up with friends and what have you. And I just wonder if this is kind of an obscure reference, perhaps, to going back into lockdown once more here in the UK. Particularly because of the bouncers telling people where they can and can't go and if they can go in or out. And the government or governments are acting like that at the moment, like big bouncers, keeping people out or rather in. Now, there was this other space in this multi-story or multi-spaced nightclub, where there was a downstairs part where there was some kind of alternative music being played as opposed to the crowded upstairs. And that kind of implies things about an underground, perhaps, music, an underground kind of lifestyle. So something that's not immediately visible, but kind of at a lower or different level. And there's something about going up and down that can represent where we're going in our lives. And everybody wanted to go upstairs, and it was crowded, and the bouncers weren't letting anybody in. But if you were willing to go down to the lower levels, you would hear something different, and it was less crowded. So maybe there's something about not following the crowd as well there for the dreamer to think about. There was also if you extrapolate a little bit, there's almost a biblical kind of reference here, because the upper room is where the Last Supper took place. So there's again that notion of ascension, or going to a higher place, where what was it? Was it simply because, I asked the dreamer, was it simply because the other room was less crowded, or excuse me, had different music, that you decided to go there, or just because you could get in there more easily? So it was just a matter of convenience. How did you feel about that? Is it someplace you actually wanted to be, with this different space and different music? So let's just leave that for the moment. And the only other question I would have about that was, is there or was there something that's similar that may have happened in the dreamer's life, waking life, whether it's past or present? The second dream deals with driving a car, or driving a plastic tractor, as it were. Now, the dreamer was driving, and vehicles can often represent our journey through life. As I've said in other lives, sometimes we're on foot, sometimes we're driving, sometimes we're being driven, sometimes we're on a bus. I mean, it just depends on what the unconscious mind is trying to communicate with regard to our journey. Sometimes we're moving, sometimes we're standing still, sometimes we're changing vehicles, different things. And what the exact meaning is will vary according to the person and what's going on in their life. But in this particular case, the dreamer is driving, which implies a sense of self-agency, able to run his life. But interestingly enough, the dad is his riding shotgun. And I wonder, for the dreamer, if there is, in terms of parental relationships, if there may still be, even though acting independently, there's still some strong tie or strong influence of a parent on this dreamer. Because even though it was the dreamer in the driver's seat whose car he was driving was the dad's. And the type of car is an older model car as well. So there may be something about the ideas, notions, or behaviors that we inherit from our families, our parents in particular. Now, moving on to the gentleman on the tractor who turned out to be the dreamer's brother. At first glance, you looked at it and just looked and saw this adult on a toy tractor getting on the highway, on the on-ramp, and says, "What the hell is this crazy person doing?" Until they got close enough to realize that it was actually his brother. Now, the first thing that came to mind was that, the expression that big boys have big toys. But in this case, it might have been a big toy, but certainly wasn't supposed to be ridden on the street. No, not even to speak of driving it on the motorway. The other thing that came up was, there's an expression here in the UK, is a certain group of people of a certain social standing will drive these big Range Rovers and big cars like that, vehicles like that, and they call them, rather pejoratively, Chelsea tractors. And people in the UK will understand that. They'll know exactly the type of person that is associated with that expression. But there are people who like to drive big SUVs and things like that. And that came to mind, and I wonder if there was something about the dreamer's attitude with regard to the tractors in general and farming, and Chelsea tractors, which is, there's a flip side. There's one that's actually a job, and the other one's a lifestyle. The other thing that I wonder is that it seems, going back to my expression about big boys with playing with big toys, with about something about playing at life, playing at the game of life, and maybe holding on to that childlike sense in life that makes things interesting, because children are always full of wonder, always exploring, always coming up with new ideas and new ways of looking at things. And maybe this brother, who it says is disabled, it doesn't explain how or why or what's happened about in terms of this condition, but perhaps this brother, older or younger, we don't know, represents a part of the dreamer, perhaps, that is still has that childlike sense of adventure and fun, and a bit of daring. I mean, it's a bit of daring to take a toy tractor onto a busy highway, but there you go. And there's also the relationship of tractors in the traditional sense being used for farming, for producing food, for caring for the land. And I wonder if there's something for the dreamer in that as well. Now, the brother, I'd like to speak a little bit more about that, because often in our dreams, when we dream of someone who is of the same sex, whether they're known or unknown, they quite often represent the shadow part of us, the part of us that is less developed, that is less known to us in a conscious way. And the fact that this brother is disabled makes me wonder that if there is a part of the dreamer himself that feels disabled in some way. And that's something perhaps for the dreamer to think about and look at. Let's see. Now, the dreamer reports that once they had stopped the brother, he asked the dad to get out of the car and apparently to stop, to get the brother off the road. And I just wonder here if the dad is kind of a stand-in for authority figures, especially as we've just gone back into lockdown now. So the dad represents the authority figures in general, like perhaps the police, the government these days, that's acting very much like a parent, or an irresponsible parent in some cases, when it comes to their citizens. And this obvious flouting of road rules, and the brother riding a toy vehicle on the highway is almost like a child thumbing its nose at a teacher that they don't like or something behind their back. And so, again, I'll come back once more to this disability. As I said, it may be representing some aspect of the dreamer, but is there any relationship in waking life with a disabled brother or other relative? So those are what I've been able to pull out of the two dreams so far. And I'm sure that if I spent more time, I would find even more stuff. But the connection possible connection between these two dreams, because in the end, it's the dreamer that makes the connection and makes sense of it all. But one of the things is that in both dreams, there's kind of a bypassing or ignoring of normal routes or ways of doing things. Passing by getting passed by the bouncers into the basement part of this nightclub, for example, The dad and the bouncer are maintaining control or imposing law and order, so to speak, on in both dreams. So they're again authority figures that we're looking at. And you have this alternatives as well. You have alternative music in the first dream, and an alternative mode of transport, this toy tractor in the second dream. And finally, I would ask the dreamer to consider that what the actual relationship, or what do the brother and dad evoke in the dreamer, because again, people who appear in our dreams are not necessarily themselves, but represent in some way aspects of ourselves. So I would ask the dreamer, what does dad evoke for the dreamer? What does brother evoke for the dreamer, or disabled brother evoke for the dreamer? And where does that seem to resonate in the dreamer's life? So there you have it. You've got bouncers, basement raves, and toy tractors, different toys of different types going on there. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Have a wonderful evening and weekend to come, despite the lockdown for us here in the UK. And I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.